Welcome back, New Jersey wrestling fans, to On the Mat, presented by the Mat Pack, the wrestling show that gives you all the commentary and news you need around the state. Mark Trible, joined with Brett Fetty. We're going to be getting into a lot of action. We're going to talk team stuff. We're going to talk individual things around the state and everything else you need to know. So hang tight. We'll be right there. And we're back. There's plenty of action to get into in terms of New Jersey State wrestling. And we're getting here towards the middle of January, an important time as we gear up for team playoffs. And then after that, the individual action that will end at Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City in early spring. So let's get right into it and talk about some key team meets from last week here, Brett. First, we'll start in South Jersey, an area we're native to here and familiar with. A big match between Kingsway and St. Augustine happened last week, Brett, and these are two teams that kind of in the middle of, I would say from number 2 to number 7 or 8 in South Jersey. Put together a meet last second, got together. Kind of a gaffe, a mistake for St. Augustine. They sent out a kid at 126 who wasn't supposed to wrestle there, and they end up having to forfeit the weight. They lose the match to Kingsway, who's, of course, powered by Quinn Kinner, last year's state champ. What do you take away from that?
When I heard the result that Kingsway won, I was surprised because seeing Kingsway wrestle the week before that, thought they had some good wrestlers, good young team. Didn't think they had enough to beat St. Augustine. Then when I heard about the gaffe, I wasn't surprised because I know I've been to St. Augustine where things happen, and that's something that can't happen. You prepare, you're a coach, you get paid to do a job. That can't happen. It's not. Kids are excited, but you're responsible for sending that kid on the mat. It shouldn't happen.
Yeah, and once you get a kid out on the mat who goes to the circle, at that point, he's committed to wrestle there. And I think they realized it a little late. I know there was a lot going on that night, and it's coming down to the last classes there and ends up costing them. The other thing in South Jersey, Brett, that I want to touch on is Camden Catholic, who at the Mat Pack in the South Jersey rankings right now, they're number 2. The Irish go down. The Virginia Duels, obviously a prestigious team tournament down in Hampton, Virginia. They come away with the win in the second division there. They end up winning, I think it was 4 meets, and taking home the trophy. What do you make of the Irish right now?
I think the Irish have balance in their lineup, and they're led by Ravana at 132. And they do have some tough wrestlers. Crouch is a tough wrestler, but they're balanced. They have good wrestlers from top to bottom. There's another Walsh in the lineup, led by Walsh. But Camden Catholic is a team that you took a couple down years. Then I think Matt Walsh has a program moving in the right direction, obviously the number 2. And then they're going to see probably Bergen Catholic down the line. And, they'll find out where they stack up there. And we'll get into what I feel about that program and what they've done. But it's right now, they're moving in the right direction.
Sure.
They don't operate on the same set of rules as far as admission with public schools, but they're there to be ranked, so we have to rank them. So, but they are a good program. They have good history. Kids want to go there. Students want to go there to wrestle, and they're putting out a good product.
Yeah, and the one thing those kids always love is the robes, man. They bring out the robes for Camden Catholic, the bagpipes, and next week they have a fascinating matchup with Cherokee, who's another team who's up in our top 5 in South Jersey, and that'll be at Camden Catholic. So it'll be interesting to see how Cherokee goes in there. I know they have some young kids. Camden Catholic, a team that is still fairly young. I mean, you talk about the job Matt Walsh has done. I think he's done a tremendous job. He's built a nice staff around him, and certainly Camden Catholic expects to win when it comes wrestling season, and they're doing just that.
They have a rivalry with Cherokee now. Former Camden Catholic wrestler Mike Booth is the head man there, and
That's
sometimes
right.
There's a little crossover because some Cherokee kids who would live in the Evesham district would make their way to Camden Catholic, but I'm sure Booth's trying to put a stop to that so he can keep his own wrestlers going to his public high school.
Yeah, and Cherokee's had a nice run too. They've certainly built up from where they were last year. They went out in the first round of the playoffs, given some weird circumstances against Eastern with skin issues. But granted, they beat Eastern this year. They're a team that looks like in South Jersey Group 5. They beat Kingsway.
They beat Kingsway, and one of that is coming down. Then I was coming down to, it's early in the year, and we talked about it last episode. kids being able to find their weight class and be comfortable with their weight. It's been a 106 dilemma this year because 106 has had the top wrestlers having trouble making weight. I know Rosano has trouble making weight for Kingsway. Lucci from Paulsboro, I haven't seen him wrestle every match and even some big matches, but I think he's been down pretty consistently now, and Paulsboro's usually good at doing that. But Holke from Highland is another wrestler who may be the best of all of them. Was down early, and I have not seen him back at 106, so I'm hearing he may try to get back at that weight class, but probably be in their best interest because 113 is a tough weight class.
Yeah, certainly something, especially with some of these kids who are freshmen trying to get down, it could be a lot to balance. Around the state, we also had some great matchups. You look at Hunterdon and Central, Raritan and High Point and Phillipsburg. These are teams that are top 10 in the state, according to the New Jersey Wrestling Writers Association poll, to which I vote. We had Hunterdon and Central beat Peaburg 38-21 last week. Hunterdon and Central gets 4 pins and a tech fall to kind of make the difference there. What do you make of the Red Devils? They bumped up the poll this week. I think people were stunned, not necessarily that they beat Phillipsburg, but to beat them by 17 points.
It's definitely a team that's always have been there. But surprisingly, they've always kind of been edged out by a Peaburg in the groups. I believe they only have one state title. But to beat Phillipsburg 38-21 really says where the direction of the program. They have a new coach. I believe after Gibble left, they had a little bit of a lull, but now they're back. And they're, when you beat Peaburg 38-21, you have everyone's attention. So I'm not going to sneak up on anybody now.
Absolutely. A couple other results that were close. Raritan beats Long Branch 27-26. High Point beats Newton 34-23. Saw a little shakeup in the top 10. Obviously, at the top, it's still going to be Bergen Catholic 1, Delbarton 2, Howe is 3, and Paulsboro is 4. Right now, 5 is Pope John 23rd. So we could see some changes up there. When it gets to this time of the season, Brett, and you're really trying to figure out your lineup for these playoffs, what's something you look at as an assistant coach or as a coach and say, here's what we need going into the playoffs, because by now you know who you're probably going to match up with down the road, right?
What you need is to be able to maximize points. And it's a good way to coach and get wins, but it's tough. It's becoming an issue in the whole state of wrestling. And I'm just going to say 14 weight classes is too many weight classes.
Absolutely.
Teams cannot fill 14 weight classes. Because, for example, you go to a wrestling match and they may have 5 state place winners. If you went to a football game and you said you had 5 all-state players, you're going to say, wow, I'm going to see some good athletes play. You may go to a wrestling match, you may not see those wrestlers wrestle. They could get forfeits. And the bottom line is, it's what has been created by the rules, is a coach is there for wins and to maximize points. That being said, if you're a coach, you coach your team. You don't coach the other team. So if your wrestler is not getting a match, he goes out there, you take the forfeit, take your points, get off the mat. You don't say anything to the other coach. You don't question, we're trying to get some wrestling, because who are you going to send out against him? Someone that's going to help improve his wrestling? No, you get better in the practice room, and if you're the coach, your job is to coach your team, maximize points, and the situation now in New Jersey, and I'm sure it's around the country, but it's a shame because New Jersey wrestling has good wrestling, and people are missing out, schools are missing out, in these dual meets where there's just too many forfeits.
Yeah.
And it's just, if you're a coach, your job is to maximize points. Unfortunately, if you're in the stands, it's tough to be able to go to a match and you see 2 wrestlers, they might have weighed in at the same weight, but for some reason, the coach needs points. There's a coin flip. The way coin flip works is you want the advantage to have the other team to send out first. You would like that for them to send out first every weight class, but that's not, that wouldn't happen. Sometimes it may happen, and if it does, your wrestler may have to forfeit. But when it happens, you have the opportunity to then counter with someone in your lineup who either made weight at that weight class or a weight class below who was able to move up. And you're allowed to wrestle, theory, you're allowed to wrestle 3 weight classes if you're a wrestler. You can wrestle your weight class, that the lowest weight allowable if you hit your descension plan, which, for example, if you're going to wrestle 106 in districts. You make 106, you're able to wrestle 106. But you're wrestling at school, they have a decent 113 pounder, you can weigh in at 113. You can't weigh in at 120 or you lose the 106 certification. But if you weigh in at 113 for that, you're allowed to wrestle 113 that night, and you can also wrestle 120. But you can't go But when you make weight, you can only make 2 weights. You're allowed to wrestle 3, if you can understand that. I know it's tough for some coaches to understand that, but the good coaches understand it, and good coaches win. And that's why, as an assistant coach, it's good to be able to help your head coach understand what that means to win. And the reason why I'm saying that, and I'm being frank, is because I've sat in the stands at wrestling, and I would love to tell everybody, it's the coach's job is to win. It's a shame that you want to see those kids wrestle. Maybe they can get an exhibition, you can see them wrestle. But the coach is there to get wins, and they get their wrestlers better in the practice room.
Well, that's exactly right, Brett. And we look at a tournament that's in season. We're going to get into it a little bit in the next segment, but Escape the Rock down in Council Rock High School South in Pennsylvania, where you do get some of the top individuals together and they can hone their skills. Otherwise, you've got kids that really, they might work all week and they're in the practice room and they're cutting weight and they get in there and they are chomping at the bit to get about. Their coach might not win the coin flip, and guess what? All that was to go out, walk to the center, get his hand raised, and walk right off. And that might be the only action he sees all week. Or maybe he gets to a dual meet tournament in the weekend or a quad and takes forfeits. So it's not something I don't think anybody enjoys. But it's like you said, that's the nature of the beast when you talk about 14 weight classes. And that's something the NFHS controls. That's a national organization. So every state in the United States has to follow those rules. There have to be 14 weight classes. Ideally, and I think you probably agree with me, go to the college level and maybe adopt the 10 weight class limit.
10, yeah, I was just going to say that, because if you see that the federation, national federation, you lose funding. That being said, maybe they have to look at something, but they're all about, they want participation numbers. They want to boost that to look good and say, hey, we have a lot of student athletes. But what it does is it's hurting the sport of wrestling. College has 10 weight classes. You're weighing in. There's no juggling in college wrestling. It's your best on 10 on my best 10. That being said, it does kind of take out the chess match part of it. So, but if you took maybe down to 11 weight classes, there'll still be a chess match in high school wrestling. Sure. Because you get dedicated wrestlers. They weigh in, backups to fill in. And that's how you win state titles, or that's how you win sectional titles, because the good wrestlers, it's hard to have, especially if you're in public school, without open enrollment or any type of way to get a student in if they move in, or they school choice. Right. It's hard to get to fill in 14 weight classes.
It's nearly impossible.
Yeah, it is. Paulsburg does it. They've done it for a while. They're able to get those kids young, and they're able to fill the lineup, and they really work at that, and they do a great job. But it's hard because most schools, it's not a focus,
right?
And it's tough for them to be able to get 14 kids walking the halls, if you don't have a feeder program. But for the most part, the wrestling in New Jersey is top heavy.
Sure,
it's top heavy because wrestling in New Jersey is great. Those top kids can compete against anyone in the country. For example, the number 1 team and number 2 team in the country in wrestling are from New Jersey. They wrestled this weekend. Bergen Catholic beat Blair, and Blair wrestles within the prep division. Now, that's a great win for Bergen Catholic. Unbelievable win, great win. But as far as it being an upset or just like this fantastic feat, really, it's a great win. Let's leave it at that, because they're saying, well, NJSI school's never beaten Blair. The only difference between Bergen Catholic and Blair is it's a prep school because students sleep at Blair. They stay there. They have dorms.
That's right.
Bergen Catholic and Blair, they operate on the same plane. They can build their program. They go out and get the best wrestlers. So Bergen Catholic went out and got the best wrestlers to beat Blair. But how they did this, though, and it was a great job for the coach of Dave Bell, did an unbelievable job rising to the occasion, because he had 3 wrestlers. I'm sorry, 2 wrestlers overturned earlier losses, avenged earlier losses. At 160, Griffith, he lost to Marola in the Beast, and he came back and beat him in this dual meet. And then Cardenas avenged his loss to Tarantino, beat him 6-0, and came back, and he had lost to him in the Beast. But at 170, where it was the real deciding match, where Foke was losing and reversed kid and pinned him. Yeah. And that's big points right there. And then Robert Howard at 120 upset the number 1 kid in the country, Colecho from Blair. and it ended up they won 33-19. But it was a great wrestling match, great for the sport of wrestling. But as far as like an unbelievable feat, really, they're two teams that can go out and recruit. They can get wrestlers they want. And you know what? Parochial schools are allowed to operate like that. Public schools cannot. Some public schools have ways that they have they do take tuition students, and they do take some students are school choice, and I'm sure they're following the rules. But they some schools have more wrestlers than others that they fill their lineup that way.
And you know what? When we're talking about parochial schools, is number 2, and we mentioned them earlier, is Del Barton. They had some great individual winners this past weekend. So we're going to get into some individual stuff as soon as we come back from the break. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Tommy Green, former pitcher for the Philadelphia Phillies. When I was in high school, it was very important to me to show scouts what I could do. My friends at Payroll Service Solutions are huge supporters of high school sports and the Sports Fan Base Network. If you're a small to medium-sized business in need of a payroll company, contact Payroll Service Solutions. Not only will they take care of you, they will continue to support the community. For more information, contact Payroll Service Solutions at 215-624-0922 or 866-PAY-EASY.
We're back to talk about some individual wrestlers and how things are going to shake out, getting ready for the state tournament here in a couple months. Brett, 195 pounds. Last year, Kyle Leitner won it from Delaware Valley, and he was spectacular. And he was certainly the favorite to do it again this year. He had an injury. Doesn't look like he's going to wrestle for the rest of the season. So right now, you think who's going to fill in that spot? And the name I'm going to say is Sam Westfield from Scotch Plains Fanwood. This is a kid who lost 5-4 to George Walton of Bound in the 182-pound final last year.
Yeah,
it seems like he's there. I know Sean Lynch, St. Augustine, he had a nice run last year in the postseason. He made it to the state semifinals before he lost to Michael Tulane. It's a little bit open-ended, but right now I'd say Westfeld might be the top one.
Interesting. His interesting competition will come from Bergen Catholic. Will probably be the winner in a wrestle-off between Cardenas and McKenzie. That's what I feel, because if the winner of that will go on to wrestle 195, and we'll have, we'll be right there, and I think has a great shot at winning it. The loser of that wrestle-off, just as in my opinion, will probably go to 182, where you have Bill Janzer made an appearance on the mat. He's back. And you have Santino Marina, who he beat in overtime this weekend at the Escape the Rock tournament, which was a great match. I watched the match, and watching the match, I couldn't believe that Marina actually got hit for stalling. A stall point was awarded to Janzer, which I couldn't believe, and Marina didn't get a takedown. It was a takedown in regulation, so good match. And you don't know how the match would have played out from there, but it went in overtime. Janzer was just too much in overtime. He looked good for not wrestling in a few weeks, but I'm sure it's going to be interesting to see Janzer, Marina, and possibly McKenzie or Cardenas from Bergen.
Yeah, and this is kind of the interesting part about how it all shakes out here, is that we have certainly an opportunity to see who wants to rise to the challenge, or who wants to shake up their weight class, or wants to assert at a different weight, and can really change the dynamic of the state tournament. I mean, the way things look right now are never the way they look come district tournament time, regions. It all changes so much and can change so quickly. But let's get to Escape the Rock, Brett. And we're talking about New Jersey wrestling here. 7 times a New Jersey wrestler made it to the final on Sunday, and 7 times they won it. At 106, Nico Nardone from Del Barton wins. At 13, Anthony Clark from Del Barton wins. At 26, the fabulous Nick Ramo from Hanover Park wins. 32, Pat Glory, who might be the state's best wrestler.
Ramo 132, Glory 126.
Okay. So either way, Glory wins from Del Barton. Quinn Kinner, he beats the number 2 kid in the country. Quinn Kinner is the number 1 kid in the country with an escape in ultimate tiebreaker. Travis Tavoso from Del Barton at 145. And Billy Janzer, like you said, at 182. He gets a win. He's another state champ that's back. So, like you were talking a little bit about how it's top-heavy, even though it is at the top, it's pretty tough in New Jersey,
It's
right?
as good as there is. And the great thing about this Escape the Rock tournament, it is a individual tournament within the season. And it's a good chance to see these top wrestlers wrestle each other, because say if Hanover Park and Del Barton wrestled in the dual meet, you may not see Glory and Ramo wrestle, even though they're within a weight class. But in that individual tournament, eventually they're going to meet down the line because that's the way the brackets play out. And who's very savvy on getting good competition, not wrestling in the dual meet style, is Paulsboro. Paulsboro's battle tested. They go to the Mustang, and then they go to Escape the Rock. They don't really. They're doing something unique this year, where they're wrestling stools from North Jersey in the dual meet, and I know they knocked off Hanover Park, and they beat them pretty decidedly.
Yeah, at the Boar Stools.
Yes, and this weekend they're going to have High Point. So it's good to see Paulsboro wrestling in a dual meet outside South Jersey, but when we're talking about your battle tested and top heavy, Paulsboro kids are prepared for the top wrestlers because they wrestle them in Escape the Rock, they wrestle them in the Mustang. So when they get out on the mat in districts and regions and states, it's just another match. Now, and these top level kids, if you look at the Beast of the East, the Powerade, the Buchanan tournament, those are the top tournaments in the country. Del Barton is there at every tournament. Bergen Catholic is there at every tournament. Now, those and Nick Ramo, Hanover, he brings the other kids from Hanover Park in with him, and they wrestle too. But that is the best part about this sport, because you can see the top wrestlers wrestle. And when you go to Atlantic City, when it culminates in Atlantic City, you're getting your money's worth.
Yeah, you look at a guy like Quinn Kinner, and I can't say enough about him, being around the kid, watching him kind of grow here the last few years. He wins the Beast of the East. I mean, what more needs to be said? And then to do what he did on Sunday, he's just unbelievable.
To put that in perspective, the wrestler Tavosa, who won it at 145, Kinner wrestled him this year and major decision to him. So I believe Kinner right now is the best wrestler in the state, pound for pound.
Really?
I think his style translates the best in college. And I think, he's going to Ohio State, so I think he's going to have the opportunity to get to do more than Pat Glory. Pat Glory's a great wrestler. He's going to Princeton. Typically, Princeton does have a good program, but as far as taking it to the next level, Quinn Kinner's going to Ohio State. Their room is filled with All-Americans. They're in the Big Ten.
That's right.
The Big Ten it's pretty much it's about the same as the national tournament. So I believe Quinn Kinner, to me, at the next level, I think is going to be the best. I think right now he's him and Glory are neck and neck, but I would give Kinner the edge. And but it's great to be able to see those wrestlers be able to compete in the same tournament.
Sure. And Brett, take as a former assistant coach, take the viewers through what happens at this point in the season. Because before we get into the individual stuff and the match limit, the 30 match limit, the cutoff I believe is February 3rd, and soon after that we're getting into the playoffs. So take people through what a kid's considering when he starts to think about where the weight classes are going to shake out, and if he should change or if he should stick where he's at.
Here's the way we've always viewed that as a coach. At the beginning of the year, the weight class, there's regulations now because there's the set plan with hydration, because weight loss was something that wasn't done the right way. The wrestlers were losing weight, crash dieting. So now there's a descension plan. So it's a healthier way to be able to actually drop the pounds and cut weight. So once you get that under control, it's a little easier to say, okay, now let's talk about what weight class you're going to go for postseason. And then, because it's all a team competition until districts come in. And districts is an individual tournament. But as the head coach or as an assistant, your job is to win. And when a varsity wrestler knows that the coaches make the decision on where they step out in the mat.
Right.
So what you want to do is you want to get your best lineup together and you're going to scout the best teams in your section, and then you're going to scout the best teams in the state, and you're going to prepare your lineup to maximize the points there. So if a wrestler, and you have to follow your descent plan, because if they don't follow it, and for example, if you have a wrestler who's wrestled 285 all year, but he can make 220, but he hasn't made it yet, he would have to make it now before the playoffs start, and now he's able to wrestle 220. So you get flexibility when the playoffs come, because then he can wrestle 220 or 285, and you'll have him down the weight, and you'll have him prepared. And it's a chess match for the coaches and the wrestlers. You want to focus their attention on the mat. You want to scout. You want to have every team scouted. You want to look at their lineups, their backups, what kind of lineups are the teams in front of you, what have they put on the mat. Because it's mostly, you have it pinned down at the end of the season.
Right.
Once the 2 pounds come in, you know who's going to be there. So you prepare your team, and you put the best wrestlers on the mat to try to maximize points.
Yeah, and it's a good give and take, too, because it is the team concept. And wrestling is unique in that way, that it is the perfect marriage between individual and a team concept. You're going to get your shot to do both. You're going to be able to help your team advance in the playoffs, and then you're also going to get your chance to shine alone on the mat in individual tournaments. But to be able to kind of balance that in the give and take, and the wrestler, if a coach says, hey, look, we really need you at 182, we know you're at 70, or we know you're at 60, 62, and that's the way it's going to be.
Certain kids rise to the occasion when they're asked to. Certain ones, you have to pull them to the occasion. Some of them don't rise to the occasion. So that's another thing. If you're a good coach, you have your thumb on the pulse. You know what moves, what buttons to press to be able to put the best wrestler on the mat at that time. Because some wrestlers are apt to getting pins, which pins are huge, because they're bonus points, they're whole criteria. There's some wrestlers that they're great wrestlers. They don't lose, but they decision. And for some reason, they're not pinners. But you'll have to have all that figured out and everything. And it's a sacrifice for some of these wrestlers because, like you had mentioned, if you're at 170, you're asked to go 182. Some wrestlers think, oh man, that's 12 pounds. I mean, I'm going to wrestle. Yeah. But some other wrestlers will be like, oh, fine, jump on the mat, let's go. But it's just, you have to, that's why you say the thumb on the pulse, to know the mentality of the wrestler before they step on the mat. Because I'll tell you what, I've coached a lot of wrestlers who had a lot of talent. They were great in the practice room. For some reason, when they were on the mat, they let too many outside factors get inside their head, and they didn't perform at their best.
Right.
But as a coach, it's your job to take pretty much all the distractions, put them aside, put them on the mat, and create that atmosphere where, hey, it's us against the world, we're going to win. And, it's what makes – you need to find out strengths and weaknesses of all the wrestlers and how they tick and how they mesh. And a lot of times it's a fun part of coaching because it's the mind games and it's kind of it's the chess match, and that's the battle for the coaches where you still have your competitive fire and you still want to win, but it's great to have your team prepared and know that listen, you weren't out prepared or outmatched by a coach sitting on the on the other sideline. Right,
and that delicate balance of knowing who can thrive outside their comfort level, who can't. You see them throughout the year, who bumps up, who succeeds in that role, and who doesn't. And then also sitting down with a kid and saying, hey, look, your best shot at states might be 126 instead of 120, or might be 132 instead of 126. All that goes into it. Another thing that makes this sport special and fun to watch. You never quite know what you're going to get when the end of the season rolls around. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going to roll around next week when we get back from the break here and look at some dual meets, some quads, some matchups that kind of intrigue us. So hang with us. We'll be back for the third and final segment of the program.
Hi, I'm Marty Bystrom, former pitcher for the Philadelphia Phillies. In my experience in Major League Baseball, I know how important it is for high school athletes to gain exposure. My friends at Payroll Service Solutions are huge supporters of high school sports and the Sports Fan Base Network. If you are a small to medium-sized business in need of a payroll company, contact Payroll Service Solutions. Not only will they take care of you, they will continue to support the community. For more information, contact Payroll Service Solutions at 215-624-0922 or 866-PAY-EASY.
Hey, you.
Who, me?
Yes, you. You like pro sports?
Yeah,
You like college sports?
of course.
You like high school sports?
I guess.
Maybe you just don't know much about them.
Hey, voice in the sky.
Huh?
Where can I go to learn more about Philadelphia area high school athletics?
Just watch Varsity Voice every Wednesday on Facebook Live at 7 p.m.
All right, now it's time to take a look at some of the action around New Jersey this week that'll be worth the price of admission, certainly. We'll start on Thursday. Brett, we got number 8, Phillipsburg, and we mentioned earlier they're coming off that loss last week to Hunterdon Central. They're going to go to Hanover Park and wrestle Nick Ramo and the Hornets. This should be a good one.
Should be a good one. And Phillipsburg down to number 8. I'm pretty sure they're looking up at Hanover Park, which it's very rarely said. But I look for Peaburg and the State Liners to bounce back.
You like that?
I do like them to bounce
Well,
back.
I think, with Pope John at number 5, I think 1 through 5 right now is pretty set, as we talked about with Bergen, Del Barton, Hal, Paulsboro, and Pope John.
It's pretty set in stone. It would be. I'd be very very surprised if somebody breaks that even by the end of the year. And I know they're going to wrestle in Toms River, and there's 5 groups, but there's 5 teams they're going to be right there.
Yeah. So right now it looks like you got Hanover Park at 7. We'll see how everything shakes out, but this one could certainly switch things around in the poll and would if Phillipsburg can pull the upset, as you assume they will. South Plainfield's number 12 in the state. They're going to number 3. Howe is operating on another level. Their lineup's loaded. I don't see any way that the Tigers can top the Rebels.
Howe has very few weaknesses. Them like Paulsboro are the 2 teams that are public school that can compete, not with Bergen Catholic because they cannot compete with Bergen. Bergen may actually shut both of those teams out. But they can compete with Del Barton. They can compete with anyone. But I'd be very surprised if they lose.
Speaking of the Red Raiders of Paulsboro, on Friday they get probably their toughest test in the Colonial Conference with Haddonfield. Haddonfield's a team that lost, I believe, in the second round of the Virginia Duels. Came with high hopes. Really didn't lose all that much off last year's team that narrowly missed the state semifinals in South Jersey Group 2. Paulsboro will travel up to Haddonfield to face them. I think Paulsboro is just so far ahead of South Jersey, but it'll be an interesting matchup. Maybe get a couple really good bouts from the Haddons and the Red Raiders.
Could be, and that's the key word is a couple of good bouts because Haddonfield may be lucky to win 2 matches.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. I mean, just the Paulsboro's lineup compared to Haddonfield, who is the second best team in their conference. Paulsboro, I believe, should be favored in 12. Maybe even 13 of these weight classes, because that's how good Paulsboro is, and it's just the top heavy. That's where the top heavy comes in. Where in South Jersey, I don't really see anyone competing with Paulsboro.
Yeah, and I think you look at certainly the matchup to watch there individually is if you get Chris Baltino maybe against Brandon Green. You think
that would be a good match? I think that would be a good match, and I'd favor Green right now. And Baltino's tough wrestler. I favor Green.
Yeah, Baltino's had a couple of tough losses to some very good opponents in terms of you look at Carter, Aaron Carter from Collingswood, and then also Corey Fisher from West Deptford, Fisher's really wrestling well.
Yeah, undefeated West Deptford Eagles. And West Deptford's a young team, and put it this way, West Deptford split matches with Haddonfield, but lost because of the bonus, and that's inexperience. So hopefully West Deptford is back in a few years. It's just it's a matter of experience.
Yeah, one thing I want to point out here is this 4 Paulsboro and 3 Haddonfield. Paulsboro's number 4 in the state. Haddonfield's number 3 in South Jersey. So Haddonfield's not ranked in the state. So
we just wanted to put that up there to get more people at the match.
Saturday, Brett, High Point, number 10 in the state. They're going to see Paulsboro, I believe, at Toms River.
Now here's where it comes in. Where Paulsboro typically is their schedule. They don't go up north until the sectionals. Now they're going up north to see High Point. I think Paulsboro's favored, and I think they'll handle High Point. But it'll be interesting to see because High Point is a team every year wrestles the top competition, and they're not going to back down. And it's a big stage. You'll see how Paulsboro does in the dual meet up in North Jersey, which I know they used to go up and wrestle Jackson and Phillipsburg, and they didn't fare too well. And when they went to Del Valle, but it's good because maybe they're going to get some rivalries because here's what wrestling is lacking right now. These dual meets with the rivalries because there's match limits where now it's 30 matches before the cutoff, and what that did is create these quads on Saturdays, which it's good because for the wrestlers, they get a lot of wrestlers. But if you're a fan and you're going to a quad, and this is just a little look behind the curtain, a coach may only prepare for one team to beat, but when they're wrestling another good team, you're not going to see a good matchup. And what it does is it takes away that rivalry. There's There's nighttime matches where they pack the gyms and you have two teams going at it. Wrestling is missing that.
Yeah.
The old rivalries and the same areas. But nonetheless, Paulsboro will go against High Point. Delsey will be there, but Paulsboro and Delsey see each other at a later date.
Yeah, and even that, High Point, in terms of Paulsboro and Delsey, will be on a Wednesday this year. I remember Paulsboro and Clearview a couple years ago was a Saturday night at Paulsboro. Yeah. That was a huge event, and that's kind of the stuff that you'd like to see more of, but with the way the quads are on Saturdays, it's almost impossible.
Something needs to be done. You need to get back to that because the match limits right now, it's a limit. It's just like when you have 14 wrestlers. It's a number, but it needs to be. You need to look at the sport.
Yeah.
And hope these national people are watching right now because what you need to do is you need to make a sport that's beneficial for everybody. And you're not doing anything just filling a weight class and sending the kid out to the wolves. And you feed a kid to the wolves, meaning you have 14 weight classes, you're throwing a warm body, hoping maybe your warm body will fall on top of their warm body and you get a pin. But no, if you lower the weight the weight classes to maybe 11, 12, and if you cut back on some of these matches so you can have those Saturday night duels where it's one team against another team and maybe have a rank so you can travel, get some of these north teams down south teams up north. You can have big matches. And you can have an exciting atmosphere and it's something everyone can enjoy. And dual meets there's nothing like a wrestling dual meet. And that's what we're saying. It's a unique sport because you see kids rise to a different occasion that you won't see in any other sport because wrestling is unique, and you put someone on that stage, you put the bright lights on, it's really something to watch.
Yeah, and that High Point Paulsboro match will be at Pine Belt Arena in Toms River, so that's also where those teams will probably end up down the road if they both get through to the state semifinals. Not in the same group, but still get used to the familiarity of being there. Also, we got this was an oddity. We had a tie at number 20 in the New Jersey Wrestling Writers Association poll this week with Watchung Hills and North Hunterton. They'll wrestle it out on Saturday, and we'll see who gets the best and gets that spot.
I like how they're tied on the same week they're wrestling. Very convenient, right?
Yeah, that's nice how that works out. Number 6, Hunterdon Central. We talked about their huge win against Peaburg, and they are right there locked in that 6th spot behind Pope John. And they get St. Peter's Prep. Emerson Park Ridge should be another good group.
And yes, I looked for Hunterdon Central to beat that parochial school, show them that the public schools are still alive and can compete. But I look for Emerson Park Ridge with the all-time winningest coach in New Jersey history will be leading the Emerson Park Ridge team against Hunterdon Central.
That's right. St. John Vianney, another parochial school, will face Pope John, another parochial school. And that'll be number 16 at number 5.
Who went out and got the better wrestlers. That's it.
That's right. And also number 13, Southern on Saturday, will wrestle at number 12, South Plainfield.
Will Johnny Stout be at that match?
He will. John Stout is back from some time away, and he came back in the beginning of the new year. So Southern is a team that certainly is getting healthy at the right time and putting things together.
It's always entertaining to watch Johnny Stout on the sideline.
Yeah, Southern's always worth the price of admission. Jack Welch Duels at Moorestown, Brett. We got a lot of different. There's 16 teams at this one. South Jersey will be represented, most prominently by Kingsway and Cherokee. You look at some teams that have produced some state champs in the past, and Christian's Brothers, Boundbrook, also Warren Hills will be there, Long Branch, Newton, and Del Barton. Certainly, Del Barton will likely win the dual meet tournament, but we should see some good individual bouts. And if Kingsway and Cherokee should match up again, to talk to our South Jersey folks here, those two wrestled earlier this season. I believe Cherokee beat them by 9.
Cherokee did beat them by 9. They hopefully. I'm thinking that Kingsway will probably want to have Rosano down for that if they do meet, because I think that was a difference in that match.
Cherokee's good down low.
Cherokee's good down low. 106 Rosano, one of the 6 spinners for Kingsway. So it'll be that'll be a good match to watch, because you're going to have some top wrestlers going against Kingsway's good young talent, where they have Finn McFadden, one of the top freshmen, 126, and they have Jacob Gentile at 138, where 132. He's kind of still trying to fit what weight class he's going to be, but it should be a good match.
Yeah, Cherokee's got a number of kids who are just hard-nosed. And down low, they have Andrew Aramondo, who's younger. Cooper Pontelandolfo is one of the best freshmen we have in South Jersey. And Colin Maratna has been there before, state placer last year, and certainly he brings a lot to the table. So,
And Del Barton, now this isn't to make anyone feel bad or from Kingsway, but they didn't have their full lineup when they wrestled Kingsway the first time. They're starting to get a few of those wrestlers back, and I know Kingsway came within, I believe it was.
yeah, it was fairly close. I mean, they were
Good
within
match,
a couple
yeah.
bouts. It could have gone either way, really, if you looked at it.
Yeah, I know there was close back, but I know Del Barton's starting to get their full lineup back, and look for them to probably dominate those opponents.
Yeah, and I want to get to a comment here from Lakeisha Paul Rogers, who mentioned Williamstown, Shamun Smith, and Brian Martin have done a great job with Coach John Jernigan's bunch. That team has really come together. Nick DeRosa's and other wrestlers done real well. They have a big matchup on Wednesday night against Highland, so that's another one worth the ticket.
There's going to be a lot of where we talk about the chess matches, where it'd be interesting to see the weigh-in sheets for that match, because I know it's a lot of evenly matched wrestlers down low, and it'll be interesting to see. And Martin, I want to see Martin wrestle. I know he hasn't wrestled since I think he wrestled a few matches as a sophomore. He's been hurt. He's back, and he's beat the top
He's
kids.
undefeated.
Beat Maxwell.
Beat Tommy Maxwell, yeah.
And be interesting to see how he does at he's a 195 this year too.
Yeah, he was our Matt Pack Wrestler of the Week. We'll see. Maybe he'll bump up and wrestle Devin Starks, who's number 1 in his weight class by the Matt Pack at 220.
Wow. You want to see that.
But
And
like
if
you said, you got to maximize
If you're
team
a coach,
points.
though, maybe you don't want to see that if you're a coach of one. But that being said, probably a great match. Go see it. Maybe it happens.
Yeah, we'll see. John Jernigan matches wits with, I guess it'll be Frank Plefka.
Yeah, from Highland. And Charlie Huff and Holke will be there. Rob Holke. So we'll see what they kind of lineup they throw out there.
The whole crew for the Tartans. We're going to wrap this up. You know, it's been another great, this is our second time doing this, the first time live, so we're getting the kinks out.
Oh, we're live? I know we were live.
We're live. Here's some other shows you can check out on the Sports Fan Base Network. On Wednesdays at 7 o'clock, Varsity Voice with Frankie Stokes. Thursday at 7 o'clock, In the Paint with Nikki Jones. Monday at 7 p.m., 3 in the Key with Richie Bleiweiss. And you can get this broadcast and all the shows podcasted on iTunes, Brett, if you're into podcasts. I don't know if you are or not. Or you Or you can visit the website at thesfbn.com for any other features and content that we have here at the Sports Fan Base Network. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate the patronage, and we'll move forward. And you know what, Brett? It's an exciting time of the year, man.
It is. I just got a Facebook account, too.
Really?
I'm excited.
So you can watch this live on Facebook after we archive.
Yeah, this Facebook thing. Yeah, I'm interested to see what it has.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. For Brett Fetty, I'm Mark Trible. We'll see you out there on the mat.